Well, it is always a celebration here on Great Day Live, and we are continuing our celebration with our first guest this morning. Nikki Lanier is the founder and CEO of Harper Slade, a racial justice advisory firm aimed at advancing racial equity for some and equity for all, definitely. So let's celebrate diversity this morning with Nikki Lanier. Nikki, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about how you founded Harper Slade. You were actually the VP and regional executive of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, doing a lot of good work, right? That's a big job. Why did you leave that position, and why did you feel passionate about starting Harper Slade?
Oh, thanks for the question. This is a long time coming for me. I have long since been interested in, worried about, and immersed in issues around race and equity. And now, having worked for the Fed for the last 7 years, I think I have a more acute understanding of the economic implications associated with our continued missteps in this doctrine, and particularly those missteps, the cost in the workplace. And what does that have to do with our overall macroeconomic well being? So I just made a decision that it was time for me to move on to my next season of usefulness and bring my skills and my background to really helping employers understand the nexus between advancing racial equity at work and our overall economic well-being.
And begin with that. What advice do you give companies, CEOs, small businesses, nonprofits? How do they begin that conversation? How do they take a step back and say, I need to create a different environment here?
Yeah, well, that's exactly the way it starts. I mean, I think there's a lot of self-reflection that has to go into this work. The presumption that inequity is the default inertia in our country and therefore in our workplaces is a huge epiphany. It is the anchoring upon which this work, I think, has to work. The way I define racial equity is proportional fairness that takes into account the cultural and historic realities that have beset people of color as distinct from all other people, and works to remedy the same. So it is about how do we stop the bleeding of racism and its many manifestations, and treat the now infected wound that it has left for all of us, not just people of color. So it really does begin, in my view, with an understanding that the default inertia leans toward marginalization and muting and professional stunting, and then working your way kind of out of that conundrum, both programmatically, behaviorally, from an ideological standpoint, policy standpoint. So there's just a lot of work that we have to do.
And how can people and businesses listening take advantage of your services, maybe seek you out and get your advice?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm super accessible. My website, www.harperslade.com, is probably the first step. I'm very active on LinkedIn, very active in community still. I still remain on the same boards that I've been on for the last several years. So I'm very accessible and excited to connect with Louisville's leaders, Louisville's employers. We have an event actually coming up on March 1st. It's our Black Professionals Mixers, the first of three events. We're looking for sponsors for those events. So if there are any of your listeners that are interested in being a part of these kinds of opportunities to network with, the influential and affluential leaders in our city with some regular cadence, I'd love to have a conversation with those folks about how they can get involved.
Well, Nikki, congratulations and best of luck moving forward. We need your
Thank
voice,
you.
and I know many companies will be reaching out to you, certainly. So thank you so much for taking the time. The first in Nikki's series of Black Professional Mixers for 2022 is scheduled for Tuesday, March the 1st. You can find more information at harperslade.com.